Oh, all right, Anthony. So great to see you. How's it going,
It's
my
great to
friend?
be seen, my brother. How are you?
You know what? I love being able to see you, and I love that you love that I see you too.
I'm Anthony.
You know what?
Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Hey, everybody. Glenn Hausman here, coming from a back office at the Hotel Indigo downtown in Baltimore, which is operated by our good friends over at Chesapeake Hospitality. And before we bring the guys on today to talk, I got to tell you, I love Indigo, Anthony. Really, the design, the feel, the aesthetic of everything just really meshes with, I think, who I am.
Really, Indigo? Really? I thought you were more like an old hotel, like side of the road, Highway 50 guy. No.
Yeah, usually
I
I
didn't know
like
you
to.
were hip. I didn't know you were hip and cool.
I'm not, but I'm trying to be by staying at great brands like Indigo.
Well, it is. It is a great brand. They've done a really good refresh of that brand too. So it's an amazing brand. But I just thought of something I should tell you about.
Uh-huh.
We're going to be at the lodging conference,
Yes.
and on our way back, we may want to stop at Kansas City because we're dedicating our new Park University. We're dedicating our new business center, our new business building, and maybe we'll do our podcast from there that day. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. I love it. I can't wait to get to the lodging conference. We're going to have on Harry Javer soon enough from the lodging conference to tell us all about what's going to be there. I'm excited to be there. We'll be broadcasting from there. I'll be hosting a general session there with some of the leading people in our industry. I can't wait to do that. In fact, Anthony, I wasn't sure what your thing is going to be, but we're working it out for that day's main show because I'm going to be on stage at the same time we go live to broadcast that session. And then we're going to do some special content together afterwards as well. I think that'll be a lot of
Oh,
fun.
super! Do you want me on stage with you?
I don't know if that's going to work
I
out or
can
not.
I can hold the microphone.
I like that. I like that idea. I need somebody to do that for me because, I can't handle the thing on the lapel. It's just so heavy. It weighs me
I'm here.
down.
I'm here for you, my brother.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about numbers and statistics and all of that kind of good stuff today because we want to see what's happening, what's going forward. We know all of you guys out there are a little concerned about what's happening in the fall. So we're going to be talking to Jan Freitag right now over
But
at CoStar.
before
Yeah.
we do that, can I say thank you?
Yeah.
I want to say thank you yesterday for being such a good straight man. I went off the rails a little bit. I was a little bit of a pissed off Italian, and you were such a good straight man. You always came back to the facts. You always came back, and somebody even said that to me. Somebody actually texted and said, "Thank God for Glenn, because you were out of your mind yesterday."
Yeah, but some days, man, you're more of the level-headed person, and I'm just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs being super silly.
No, you're always level headed. I'm just, you know what, and I know we're going to be talking about numbers, but and I'm trying to get myself a little bit more back support here, but I just want, like, our industry right now is talking a lot. We're talking about we need to change. We're
Right.
talking about like how do we engage employees? They're doing a lot of talking. I just hope that they're doing a lot of walking around and a lot of training and a lot of speaking to their employees. There's just a lot of talking from executives, and that's what I was kind of addressing yesterday. It's like there needs to be less talking and less training online and more in person. Hey, you matter kind of stuff.
Well, when you talk about trading online, Anthony, I feel that as long as you watch No Vacancy Live Mondays through Thursdays at 12 p.m., you're going to learn a lot that you could then translate to bring into your.
Oh, I
your,
see what you did there. I see what you did there.
Yeah. Well, that's how skilled I am. Always bringing it back to us. Always there for the shameless plugs. But another company that's great for the shameless plugs. Of course, you're talking about CoStar and Freitag over there. Man, great to see you, dude. Let's also bring in our good friend Chris Green over at Chesapeake Hospitality. Jan, I'll get to you in 1 second. But Chris, I just got to say thank you so much for the great room I had here last night at the Indigo. After your generosity of being at the Showboat a couple of weeks ago with hosting me and my friends over there. Thank you. This was great. I got to give a great shout out to the GM, Jason, who's been freaking awesome. Eric, a young man who 24 years old who checked me in last night, was absolutely fantastic. Scott at the bar was terrific. You've got a great team over here. They just made me feel loved. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we're glad to do it, and I'm glad. That's a great team down there. That's one of the leading hotel indigos in the estate. They do a great job, and so Jason's a great leader and a great team. and we're glad we could house you. And I'm glad you had fun at the fish concert up at the Showboat. So.
I did. I had fun at not one, not two, but all three concerts, and somehow lived the tale to tell. But Jan, it was the boardwalk down there in Atlantic City was hustling, bustling. Everywhere I've been this summer was bustle, bustle. But Chris is concerned. Anthony's concerned. I'm concerned. What are you feeling now going forward as that great surge in business travel and events doesn't seem to be materializing?
Well, I'm concerned, right? I think that's sort of the tenor. We have seen this huge leisure surge, but now schools are back in session, in person. People have blown the money that they didn't spend in 2020 on the big road trip of 2021. They burned all their vacations. So yeah, there's still going to be weekend weddings, but, and this is where Chris is concerned as well. Like what happens on a Wednesday night? What happens on a Thursday night? Is there going to be the individual business traveler? Yeah, there's some. Is there going to be group travel in earnest? That I don't know. And you saw Google yesterday announce that they're not going to be back in the office, till January. Google, Facebook, Amazon, all those guys are saying, well, we're not going to be back in the office. Does that mean then that they can't travel? I know for Google, that means exactly that. If you're not in the office, you can't travel. So we're going to see some fallout from that. And Bloomberg had a very scary article yesterday about European business travelers, where basically the CEOs of a lot of companies are saying, you know what, Zoom works, Team works, this works. Yeah, we're still going to travel, but a much smaller amount. I have a slide about that later on. Talk about it.
Yes, great. Chris, what are you thinking? You're nodding your head.
No, I mean, of course, he's right on. And we're starting to see, I did a podcast with another research group the other day talking about, the fact that in the last 3 weeks, we've literally seen pace fall off in going into the, Q4 business travel, the bookings, even though the booking window is so short, we just don't have the business on the books. And now we're starting to see key accounts fall off a little bit, 1, 2, 3 nights a week here and there. And to me, that's just a kind of an early sign of what the risk could be, right? So it's a real concern. I mean, our hotels at the fringes of the country, right, on the ocean or maybe on the highways are doing well, but the business hotels continue to struggle. And we were really all kind of cheering for September the 7th or whatever it is, which is the day after Labor Day. And at this point, I can tell you we're watching every week in September very closely with our revenue teams, and they're very, very flat. So it's a big concern.
Yeah, right. Like you said, I think it's going to continue to be a lot of last minute. It's going to be high level executives traveling, very small groups. Have you seen conventions falling off, Glenn? Have you heard of any major conventions that we're going to attend that are canceling or falling off?
I heard of one that I'm not allowed to disclose which company or exactly what's going on, but they're going to be changing locations. So we'll talk more about that offline, but you guys will see the news in the next week or so.
That's good for Texas and Florida.
That's what I'm kind of guessing over there. But Jan, you've got all the stats, you've got the charts. I'd love to see what you're thinking about, what your data is telling you, and what all your expertise is showing.
Yeah, let's see. Let me share a couple of slides with you, and I need you to say that, yes, you can see this.
Yep,
yeah, we can
absolutely.
Cool. So let's start with some good news, right? The second quarter data was actually much better than anticipated. So when we, at the beginning of the year, forecasted for the year, you see here that we forecasted room rate growth and demand growth, for the second quarter, and we actually surpassed that, right? So that then means
let's make sure we're saying the numbers for people that can't see the graphics.
Sorry. So we expected that room rate would grow by 33%. It actually grew by 43% compared to Q2 of 2020. We thought that demand would grow, basically 100% by 98%. It came in at 106%. So much stronger than anticipated, driven, as Chris knows, by the leisure traveler, by the American vaccinated or maybe unvaccinated people taken to the road. This is the new forecast. There's a lot going on here. I'm not going to go through it in much detail, but Amanda Hyde presented this at the Hotel Data Conference 2 weeks ago. The point is just to say that room demand is going to continue to grow rather rapidly. We're going to see some new supply. The long run average is plus 2%. We're saying it's going to be, plus 1.5 this year and then plus 1.2 next year. Occupancies are going to grow. And the big question is, how are room rates holding up? We're suggesting room rates are going to grow this year by 12%, next year by 6%. Tyler Morse from MCR at the Hotel Data Conference said, no, guys, I think you're undershooting. I think it's going to be more than that because inflation pressures are going to put prices up.
Right.
I hope he's right.
But,
I think he's wrong.
but let me ask Chris this question. Chris, doesn't it come down to really revenue managers and the strategy and not going back to 2008? It's like, okay, we're flat. We're realizing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is going to be flat maybe through the last quarter. It's really about not so much rate integrity, but not panicking and realizing lower rates aren't going to get you occupancies. Kind of like where we've seen during the summer, even the beginning of the summer, people didn't panic. They kept their rates high and the occupancy was there. What do you think?
I think that, well, I don't think, I know that we have attacked this differently, right? There's been a whole bunch of factors that have caused us to attack ADR differently this time. One, you have a whole generation of hoteliers now that have been through 2 downturns and realize it just doesn't work. And 2, we also know that this wasn't a black swan. I mean, it was, but it wasn't. It was a pandemic. So we knew that, the demand and everything from 19 that was there ahead of time didn't just go away because of business reasons, that they were happy to pay the rate, the demand was there, people were traveling. So there was no reason really to shut down ADR. And we've been able to push because we've had we've had compressed availability at the hotels, right? So hoteliers have had 75%, 50% of their inventory available. So, and then labor issues. So we're trying to maximize the dollars as operators in the building. And so all of this confluence of factors have held us together on the rate side, which I think is great, because now we're going to be, instead of coming off of $20 lower, we're going to come off of a good rate heading into 22, where I think the consensus is around, we're going to be about 85% of 19 and 22. But the nice part about it for the hotel side is we're going to be lower on OCC and a little bit higher on ADR, which is going to help us to drive and try and collect some of that profit that we've lost over the past couple of years.
Right. Jan, Chris makes an absolutely great point in regards to not lowering those rates. I know you have at the top of your head some numbers probably in you. When you do drop rate, how long does it normally take to recover based on what you saw during the last down cycle? Do you recall that?
Yeah, we looked at this post 9/11 and post 2008, and this takes twice as long for the rate to recover than it is to drop it. So
right.
Post 9/11, it was 12 months down and then 24 months up. And post 2008, it was like 18 and 37 months or something. So it just takes a long time. And that's right. Basically what this chart here shows. RevPAR compared to 2019, even next year, is still 10% below. And so then the question is that we get all the time, Jan, when are we back to 2019, right? And what you're seeing is we're proposing now that by 2024, we will see room rate and RevPAR back at 2019 levels. But, and this is a big asterisk, is this is not adjusted for inflation. This is just the raw number. We're going to hit the RevPAR rate in 2019 in 2024. But of course, it should be higher, right? Because of inflation.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Chris, what are you seeing?
I think that I'm building all my models on, 2024 being full recovery. I think we're going to be super close to 23, and I think we have a chance to get there. Like if we get fully or 80% vaccinated as a group, country, whatever, by March of next year, I think there could be another big surge forward in travel, and that could make 23 accelerate. If this thing lingers, and the longer it lingers, the more risk we have of what Jan said, where CEOs are just like, you know what, only VP level and above can travel now, or only this can travel, and that's going to mute things for a long time. And we need that. I mean, that's a huge part of our business. There just won't be enough group or leisure to back it up.
But it's starting to feel, because not only America, but Europe and other parts of the world, that this is going to be with us for years. This is not 2023. This is going to be with us for many, many years. And do you think that people are just going to start, companies are just going to say, okay, if you're vaccinated, you're going to go, we're going to have conferences, and people are just going to say, okay, it's going to be like flu season. It's part of what we're living with. And because listen, 2022, we thought we would be, by the end of 2022, we're going to be 100% back to normal. I think it's something that's just going to be with us for a very long time.
Yeah, or maybe forever, right? So the question is, how much risk are you as a CEO willing to take? If all your folks are double vaccinated, you send them to a conference that requires double vaccination and masks, are you willing to take that risk? And I think over time, I totally agree with you, Anthony, that over time, people will take that risk.
Right. I agree, Jan. That makes a whole lot of sense. And I got to tell you, I saw one big statistic on a major news network while I was sitting at the bar here last night, Chris, having a cocktail. And I didn't hear what they were saying, but it basically said vaccine hesitancy down from 34% in March to 20% now. So it looks like people are getting scared and people are starting to take action. And when enough people take action, I think that'll start to stabilize things again.
Because they're seeing people that have been talking about not getting vaccinated, and that's the devil's workshop, and they're dying. And you're starting to see it all over all the news stations, that whether it be pastors or whether it be leaders of groups or whether it be leaders of families, they're dead. We just had somebody, a friend of mine, just told me a story where a father of 4 children, wife pregnant, was completely against the vaccine, and he's no longer with us. And I think the more you see that, unfortunately, people start getting vaccinated.
And that the CDC said, hey, the Pfizer vaccine is now officially approved. I think all of that helps.
Yeah.
You know, one other quick piece of good news is that the RevPAR in July of this year is actually 30 cents higher than the RevPAR in July of 2019. Now, this is going to ebb and flow, of course, but it's just one nice, data point in time.
I have a question about that, Jan. I know you know, and this is probably a no-brainer, but that's the aggregate RevPAR, right? So it would be interesting to me to see how much higher resorts and luxury were, that they were able to drag up the bottom. Like if you did a heat map of the U.S., I bet there was spots that were like bright red, and then there's some that are still really bad, and that's what dragged the overall up, because we have a lot of owners that were still at 50% of 19 RevPAR. So it took a lot of success over here to make that happen, correct?
Hold that thought.
Okay.
give me 8 slides. I got exactly that data set as well. Real quick, we're talking about profitability. We're still far, far, far from normal. So this is total revenue per available room, GOP per available room, EBITDA per available room, and labor cost per available room. And you see here that for these are the year-to-date numbers. So for the first 7 months, we are just so still underwater in terms of actually making money. The good news is our labor costs are down. That it's good in terms of cost. It's not good because we have a hard time finding people. But you see it sort of permeates all the way through, that the July total revenue is still 24% below where it was. GOP is still 17% below where it was. Chris, does that sort of match your sense of where we are?
Yeah. It's very interesting. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all. The fact that we're improving, and this is just as an operator, is just because we have not enough staff and we're getting a decent rate at the hotels, and we're having some business. I mean, the hotel that Glenn's at had its best month in a year and a half last month. Wow. So we're going to make some money, but I mean, it's 18 months down the road. We need to make money a lot of months in a row to make up for what we've lost.
And what state are you in, Glenn?
I'm in Maryland. I mean, this is Hotel Indigo Baltimore downtown, which is a great location. Chris, you're located pretty close to the convention center. If they only had conventions, you guys would be crushing it.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that Glenn had a bartender last night, that you didn't cut that you were able to hire that person.
Listen, Scott at the bar was pretty busy last night. I was tempted to jump there behind myself and help out. But it was great to see how busy the bar was, Chris. I got to tell you, there was a whole, there must have been like 10 or 12 people here, and everybody was having a great time. And I felt it felt good. It felt positive energy. It was really nice. So,
well, people are, that's one of the big questions I get, is F&B ever coming back? And everywhere you go, F&B, it's not just revenge travel, it's revenge eating and drinking. People want to do what we are used to doing. We just want to. And so I think F&B is not dead. I think it's going to be re-envisioned a little bit. but it's going to be better than ever. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. Anthony, an interesting thing from that I learned this morning from Jason, the general manager over here, is he said this hotel is the only one serving like food at a hotel throughout the day. They got a great breakfast and great dinner. It's like some of the big box hotels are only doing it on the weekends over there. So it's a great commitment that they're serving food here.
You know, and that's what I'm hearing a lot of. I'm hearing a lot of people like, listen, I'm paying good rates. I'm traveling. I'm telling the hotel by me paying my rates and by me showing up with my family, I'm ready to eat. I wouldn't get on the plane. I wouldn't get in the car. I wouldn't go into a hotel if I wasn't ready to eat. And I'm hearing a lot of complaints about the restaurants not open, the bars not open. I paid $50 more than I did 2 years ago. And so, hotels have got to start really thinking about that, especially if they're running over 50% occupancy.
Yeah, for sure. So, Jan, what is this one that we're looking at
So
here?
a lot of people are still wondering, so has this great flood wave of closures sort of upended the hotel space? And the answer is no. Most of the rooms that were closed are indeed open again for the majority of markets. People always look at New York and San Francisco. In those markets, yes, closures still absolutely matter. You see that in New York City, 20% of rooms are still offline, some of them permanently. San Francisco, over 10% or around 10% of rooms are offline, some of them permanently. That's not good. But the point of this chart is to say, look at all the other markets, look at everywhere else, the rooms are back online.
Yeah, and when you look at New York specifically, if I can just throw this in, we may be 20% offline, but 8 years ago we had 80,000 rooms. Now we have 150,000 rooms.
Yeah, whatever it is.
20%, right, 20%. We're still way ahead of where we were, just several years ago.
And one other observation, Anthony, is I remember at the top of the market, great revenue managers saying how much struggle they were having because there were so many properties that had flooded into the city that it was really. They had nowhere, they couldn't go up anymore, but more properties kept coming to the market. Yeah, and I saw you making gestures, right? That's what was going on, yeah?
That's absolutely. You've heard the story. We're not overbuilt, we're under demolished. Well, maybe some of the functionally obsolete numbers, rooms are finally.
And listen, and in New York City, a lot of what was happening was the hotels that were being developed for inexpensively in New York is not inexpensive, but compared to these big mammoth hotels that were very expensive, and they were getting the same rates.
Yep. All right, so Chris, I'm sorry to block your face for 1 second, but a friend of the show, Dave Eisen, says if RevPAR isn't forecasted to get back to pre-pandemic levels to 2024, what's the GOP part forecast? 2 years after that, one. What are you seeing, Jan?
Yeah, I think, David obviously is in exact that business as well. So at least that year, probably a year later, the big question is labor. If we get labor back, which we have to, the prices of labor are going to be up, probably, and Chris can talk about that more pronounced. And that means that GOP is still, maybe 18 months, maybe 24 months past when we get RevPAR back. So yeah, it's absolutely RevPAR first, GOP second.
Chris?
I got to think about that. I mean, the fact is labor's we're gonna run the buildings differently. Every time we've had a downturn, we've changed the way we've done things, right? Lighter housekeeping now, and maybe less positions in the sales organization because we're selling across markets, and some other efficiencies that we're finding. So, and we're doing a lot with data and internet connected devices, Internet of Things, to try and make more efficient the hotels. So I'm encouraged that if you look at the rate, so all the big forecasters are saying we're going to be about 105% of rate in 24, right? So if you take that and you have a little bit less occupancy and you bake in a few of these other things, I mean, labor's going to be more expensive, but there's going to be less. I think you have a chance, if you're really good and thoughtful, to get there in the same year you make RevPAR. That's my opinion. So.
Right.
I would call it 24. David is a friend of mine, so he may disagree with me, but
Yeah, Dave's a great guy. He's always got great things saying. David, drop us a line. We got to get you back on the show at some point.
I just think it's funny how Chris comes here and tells lies that he has friends. I think that's funny.
I played golf with David Eisen. We actually spent time together. So.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I've never played golf with either of you guys, but that's probably because I don't play golf. Jan, how many more slides do we have to
I got plenty. We don't have to do this. There are a couple of more. I just want to run through this. Just 2 more slides on weekend. You understand?
After you do these next 2 slides, I want to get some questions from the audience. In order to do that, I'm going to remove the slide thing for 1 minute or 2. Okay, so please continue.
Weekend occupancy index, just to show, we all know this. Chris is living it every day. Weekends have been over 100% index of what they were in 2019. And you see the numbers actually in the 80% occupancy range. But then you're looking at weekday occupancy, and you see the scale change on the left. We hit 65%. On the right, we're nowhere near 100, So that's unfortunately what we're dealing with and what we're likely going to deal with this fall as well.
Right. First of all, most important thing of the day, Chris, Dave has a lower handicap than you, he's claiming. So I don't know. Seems pretty.
That's because he doesn't operate hotels for a living. If I had a cushy job like Dave has, I would be playing a lot of golf.
I know. It's easy just to make up numbers and throw them out there to everybody. All right. So Richard Majewski is saying an earlier webinar said that 67% of business travelers are pulling back on trips in the U.S. Any thoughts on that? I mean, Jan, you kind of opened up by talking about how some people are pulling back and the risk and all of that associated with it. My guess is when we go to some of the major industry events, kind of like what Chris was saying, VP level or above, instead of a company sending 5, 6, 7 people, it'll probably send 2 or 3 people. Events will still go on, but they'll be smaller numbers. Does that all read true to you?
We have always disagreed with Bill Gates, who said business travel would be cut by 50%, but there's clearly going to be an impact, VP or up. And because this is just so efficient, and we're all now trained after a year and a half of being fine, looking at, Anthony's backyard. And we're just like, okay with that, which was never okay, 5 years ago or so. And suddenly this is just the new normal. So these smaller meetings will unfortunately be online, and that's obviously going to cut into like the one night, Chris and Glenn, Anthony, we've all done this, right? Just like hop on a plane overnight, meeting for 2 hours, hop back out. Unfortunately, that's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, but I also think
I hope we're going to come back.
But I think it's really important for businesses and companies to understand if your people are vaccinated and they don't have underlying health conditions and they want to travel, you've got to get them out there, because I have seen a difference between the people that I deal with on a daily basis that are out there, that are in airports or in restaurants or that are going to meetings, and the people that are still in their home doing Zooms. I notice complete difference. Not only now, whereas I think everybody was productive, now I think the people that are lingering and that want to go out there but they can't because of their company, you're starting to see the results of that. And so I just think we need to get out there. We need to travel. Businesses need to keep these conferences going. We can't deal with this for 2 or 3 years, because what happens after something happens for a period of time, it becomes a habit, and we can't get into the habit.
Right.
So most of us started in hospitality in some form or another, and we're social creatures by nature. Yep. So for me, whenever I start getting kind of negative, frankly, my admin that's been with me 16 years says it's time for you to go to the hotels. I mean, she just knows. She's like, you've been in your office too long. Get to the hotels, because that's how I get encouraged and enriched, is not sitting here. This works, but it's not the same. I was in DC last week for a 4-day meeting with peers and some other, and I just really had a great time. I mean, the conversation. So the difference is we can sit here and talk, but I can't after this one section, I can't grab Jan and go to the side and go, hey, let's talk more about that real quick. I need some more context. That's what happens with Zoom. You can't get that extra fullness of the meetings. That's some things. That's what really matters. So
with that said, Garden City next week, my friend Glenn, the Garden City.
Yes. Yeah, we got to put together a Garden City show, and we're going to be reporting from the new Resorts World, the Hyatt. That's at the Resorts World Casino at Aqueduct Racetrack, and we're going to be broadcasting from in Times Square on September 14th. We got some fun stuff going on.
Then we're going to be in Arizona.
Yeah, we are. But the one thing that really strikes me is we tend to look at everything a lot through our industry. I think, Chris, you were saying people in the hospitality industry are more social creatures. And I think people also self-select the industries they go into, determined on their personality and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering if like hospitality events or the World of Concrete event might attract more people than like a event focused on psychology or an educational focused event, for example? I mean, I don't know. These are just the things that I start to think about. Do you think that there are some categories of groups that are going to be more robust than others, or is it really all the same? Yeah, I know you got a thought in there. I can see that. I can see what's going on in your head. I see the wheels
He's
turning.
got a slide for that, Glenn.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we're all social creatures. I think I'm totally with Chris. If you're a PhD in psychology or a PhD in concrete mixing, you still want to get to your peer and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. What are you seeing? And it's hard to do that in a group like this. You do that over a drink and at the bar.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm wondering if, like nothing against like accountants, but accountants are more focused on numbers and sitting in their office. I'm wondering if a group like that is a little different than us, who can't stand being behind a desk.
I'm not going to say anything negative about accountants on here. So,
no, there's nothing to say negative about them. They're just different personalities. I couldn't live my life without accountants.
So there probably will be less doomsday prepper conferences. So.
Right. Yeah.
I think the only people that should stay in their offices and not come to properties are asset managers.
Correct.
All right. We have got somebody else joining us, and that is Andrea Stokes from JD Power. Andrea, please unmute yourself.
Wow.
Hi,
Hey,
how are you?
Hey.
How are you today? So it's great to see
I'm good. Thanks so much for inviting me to be on today. What a great group.
Well,
so
honestly,
happy to see you.
Yeah, we needed to get you on because we needed some sort of class here. Look at the all the degenerates we got on this show here today. So what we've been talking about is all the numbers that are going on right now in the hospitality. Yeah. Where we're at. How are you thinking about things these days at JD Power? What's going on with the hotel industry from your point of view as a company?
Well, as you know, we are the voice of the customer. So we continue to do that every day, 24/7. We did go ahead and launch our next round of our guest satisfaction study in June, so a few months ago. So we're plowing ahead, but we just released the results of our 2021 study, which we started right after the pandemic hit last June 2020. So we've got now all of that period of time covered with guest feedback. And, there's some, things that we expected to see and things that we didn't really expect to see. So it's been good.
That's why we're excited to have you on here today, because we get so caught up on our side of things. It's great to touch base to see what the customers are thinking more than the anecdotal experience we're having. So what's the big headline that you found?
Yeah, well, definitely, we saw some dissatisfaction, which I think we expected to see around food and beverage. A lot of that was scaled back, right? Complimentary breakfast scaled back. Restaurants closed, so I think, that came through. Guests were dissatisfied, not only with sort of the lack of the options, but the options that were provided were just sort of, the quality may have been a little ho-hum, and, the number of items that were, included in those grab and go bags weren't really sort of satisfying the guests who really wanted breakfast. Right. And there is still a good portion of guests, right, that want that complimentary breakfast. So important to bring that back, I think, as we sort of improve here going forward. We also saw, some interesting increases in demand. We always ask guests, hey, what's nice to have? What do you need to have? And, definitely smart TVs are a need to have right now. And I don't think that will change. I think it will only grow. But we saw a big jump there in terms of guests wanting smart TVs in the hotel room.
Right.
So,
I remember putting those in about 5 years ago. They were just kind of getting new, and people were kind of putting them in hotels. And I remember having a meeting. I was sitting on the floor of a hotel room where we're having this meeting, and I don't know what the difference was. And I just said, it will be like air. in a couple of years, it will be
Yes.
it will be like a door lock. If we don't have them, we're just going to put them in anyway. So just spend
Right.
the money and do it. And so I'm glad to hear that it has become essential, because people don't put on, channel 2, 4, and 7 anymore. They go to what the Netflix show they were watching or whatever show they were watching. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and clearly guests were doing that and they wanted to do that. So, if there wasn't a smart TV, right, it's not really a satisfier there. We also saw guests, they wanted to get outside, right? Everyone, I think, was tired of, staring at their four walls. And so a lot of guests really felt like they wanted to have, a nice view or a balcony, right? So definitely potential revenue opportunity there to kind of upsell those rooms with balconies or rooms with views, because that's definitely something else that really increased in demand, that at least that we saw in our study.
It happened to me today. I was like, I'm not going back into my cubicle. I'm going back. I'm going to my pool. I'm going to look at my pool and I'm going to sit in my backyard, because I am so done. I literally can't even get back in the studio to do it. Like, I have to find places every day because I'm done. I am done with Zooms. I'm done.
I hear you. So, Chris and Jan, it was interesting. We were talking about the food and beverage thing before Andrea got on, and Andrea, we were talking about how a lot of places are closed, and there is a dissatisfaction with it, particularly since the hotel industry has finally smartened up and didn't wholesale lower prices, so the expectations are still there. Chris, I'd be curious to what you're seeing in terms of how the major brands that you partner with are thinking about this going forward, because as Michael Weinberg says, it's really amenity creep that the hotels are trying to get away from. Yes, but we've also trained all the guests to have a series of expectations. And right now it feels like things are being taken away. And that's going to create a schism, I think, between the happiness and the unhappiness people. So how are you seeing that?
I mean, it's a very interesting problem, because generally, and Andrea may have this data, I don't know, but generally where the dissatisfaction is occurring generally is in business class hotels or roadside hotels that have not gained enough occupancy back to be able to support it. If you go to like the Power Plant Live in Savannah, Georgia, at the JW Marriott down there, all the food and beverage outlets are open, and they've been open. Why? Because
it's a great hotel.
They're experiencing a tremendous amount of travel. So everywhere that we can afford it, we're having great F&B go on. But the problem is half the hotels in America, or 40%, Jan will tell us, are not experiencing success right now, and they have to shut F&B down because it just doesn't work. So guest A goes to the Power Plant Live, and then B guest goes to whatever, the so-and-so in downtown Atlanta, and they've got no breakfast, no nothing. Yeah, they're going to be completely dissatisfied. As far as the brands go, they know. They see the data that Andrea sees. They know that guests are going to be very unhappy. And the correlating drop in operating RevPAR for dissatisfied guests is significant. So the brands want us to get back to F&B as soon as possible.
Can I answer a question, Chris? That's a difficult question to answer, and I'm just going to put it out there, and it's probably not politically correct to answer it. Do you think that brands are just, and some major management companies are just kind of accepting the level of amenity and level of service is just not going to be there for the next 36, 48 months?
No.
Okay, good.
No, I don't. I think that when you talk to the real strategic leaders in the brands and in the key management companies, we want to serve our guests and we want to get back. Now it may look a little different, but we want to get back to what we were doing before, because in our heart, service is what matters. And we know that RevPAR and GOP and GoPAR, and the service experience has to be fleshed out completely. Great meeting space, great servers, great staff, great food. So no, I don't think there's a deep-seated idea that we can make more money by not doing this.
And just since you mentioned the JW Marriott in Savannah, I was just there. It's owned by Kessler Group, and I was there doing a speaking gig, and I have some friends that work there. I got to tell you something. That is one of my new favorite hotels. Not only were all the food and beverage outlets open, they were amazing. There's an African restaurant. There's a steakhouse. And plus, it's like a museum/hotel, and they're just opening up another hotel that's attached to it that's going to be like a maritime kind of museum. It's absolutely stunning, and it's one of those it's one of those hotels where you feel like you're not in the hotel, that you're someplace else, and it happens to have a hotel. So big fan of that hotel. So if you're in that area, stop by.
Jan, I want to get you in, but Matthew, I know I owe you an email. I was on vacation last week. I'm a little behind. I promised to respond to you. Jan, on this whole thing, I keep hearing from owners. They keep saying that they want to eliminate breakfast stuff, right? They're looking at it from a dollar and cents point of view. There are a lot of owners that want to do the right thing, make their guests happy, but there are a lot of owners that are seeing this as an expense thing. And it's causing a little bit of a headbutting between what the brands want to do always and the owners. That's no new story. They're always having issues with each other. That's the nature of the relationship in hospitality. What are you seeing out there when it comes to all of these issues and reconfiguring the way we do amenities from breakfast and beyond?
Yeah, so that was actually my question to Chris, was what have you done in 2018 and 19 that you're like, there's no way we're ever going to do that again, right? I think breakfast amenity creep is certainly on the chopping block, right? You started out with whatever a standard breakfast was at a Hampton,
right.
And that then evolved into, full-blown.
Wasn't it just like literally like a coffee roll or something like that and a cup of coffee pretty much at the beginning, right? Just a coffee.
Well, it's an arms race, and to all my brand friends out there, nothing negative here, but it's an arm race. If somebody puts a pancake machine, then everybody puts a pancake machine. And nobody has been able to quantify to me that if you add X to the breakfast, so let's take Hampton Inn. People love Hampton Inns. It's a very popular brand, and people like the breakfast. I can't see that there's been any additional satisfaction by adding extra things compared to what was there before. So that does happen. When you've got an arms race going on, that's where I think we have problems.
Right.
So is there one thing that jumps out at you that you're not going to do again?
I mean, honestly, I think we've done such a great job with a la carte breakfast. I just don't see breakfast buffets coming back, and even in business hotels, I really don't. We've gotten really good at doing great a la carte, and it tastes better. It's not so much, there's not so much attendance needed for it. There's not so much waste. Quite frankly, it's more efficient. So.
Yeah,
right.
And I think it's really, especially from a business traveling standpoint, it's more from my perspective and with my friends I talk to, it's more important to be able to get breakfast somewhere, whether it be right next door, whether it be at the Starbucks in your lobby, but to get breakfast, whether it's free, whether it's a buffet. Not being able to get breakfast, I just had that experience at a hotel in Vegas, and I was pissed, man. I was absolutely pissed. I had to go upstairs to my room. I could get room service, but I couldn't go downstairs, and I just wanted something quick. I didn't want to wait 20 minutes for room service, and I was upset. And I didn't say anything, but it was very disappointing that they didn't have one little place that I can get something.
Yeah. Andrea, so let me ask you this in regards to all what you're seeing. Are consumers dead set against this stuff, or is it more of an expression of the emotion they're feeling now, and then everything sets back to normal with their sentiment, even if things are removed that they were accustomed to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, what's important, at least that we see in terms of kind of overall guest satisfaction with their stay, is consistency. And we kind of just touched on that, right? I mean, the brands, when their properties are not consistent, guests go into a Hampton Inn and they expect something at the Hampton Inn, no matter which Hampton Inn they're visiting or where they are. And consistency is a big driver there. And that's across, select service, full service, whatever. So there may have been some of that going on with guests this past year, is that, it wasn't consistent. If they were out there traveling, what they would find in the South was different than what they might find in the Northeast. But it's still really important. I do think breakfast is going to continue to be a differentiator. When you launch a new brand, I know recently you had to lean on from Hilton talking about True. True, for the second year in a row, won the J.D. Power Award for their segment. And they have a very unique breakfast concept, and they're differentiated, right, from the category there.
Right. I was at a True last week, as a matter of fact. I finally got to stay in one. I've been so embarrassed I hadn't. I finally got to stay in one. My son Jake had the best time ever waiting at the pancake machine and watching it get made. It was really cool and a differentiator. And I think the whole point to what Chris was saying earlier is everybody wants to have these signature items, which created that arms race to begin with, because you want to have a point of differentiation. But the entire history of the hospitality industry, whenever you create a point of differentiation, everybody jumps in and it ceases to be different within 6 months or a year or so. Anthony, what do you think about that statement?
Well, again, I think on one hand, there's a lot of creative people in these brands that are exceptional, and they think of something that they think is important for their brand, that goes to market, and then someone else in a different brand that may not be as creative says, "Oh, that's a good idea. Let's go do that." Instead of staying in their lane, saying, like, the one thing I never want to do ever in my career is duplicate myself, let alone duplicate you. I don't want to duplicate what you're doing. When I run a business, I always want to reinvent myself and reinvent my brand. So I think people have to have a little bit of blinders on and really understand your market, who's coming into your hotel. And what's fascinating to me is, and maybe this is a question for everybody, and specifically maybe you, Chris, is why is Embassy Suites always the outlier, and no one ever talks about that? Like, you talk about, like, when it first started, there wasn't really breakfast creep. Well, Embassy Suites came out with breakfast creep 30 years ago. I mean, it came out with the biggest, hottest, greatest breakfast in the world, and still does it. Why didn't anybody follow them?
I don't know why. Well, I'll tell you why nobody followed them, because nobody built double deep bay suite rooms that they could market as suite price and run an average brand index of in the 140s to strong competitive sets. When you've got that kind of index, you can afford to give away breakfast, frankly. And people factor it into the ADR. I mean, you'll go to a market that's got a Hilton full service, and let's just say they're charging $189. The Embassy might be at $229, and nobody even balks at it because they go, well, I get my breakfast and my evening manager reception.
Right, and that's a good point. And I hope every young manager heard what you just said, because that's a really good lesson.
Yeah, Jan, before I go back to Andrea for any more statistics you have, is there any other comments that you want to make?
So coming back to Chris's question from way earlier, we are absolutely seeing a huge ADR premium for resort locations versus the urban locations. I'm not going to show you the slides, but I'm going to email them to you so you can use that in your next investor deck. And that is what's going to drive profitability for those properties this year. And then the question is also next year, because will people travel internationally? Question mark. And if they don't, it's still going to be the Great American Road Trip of 2022. And then those resorts are still going to win.
Right, it might be because Europe might ban us, so that might shift more travel over here. Sorry, Anthony, continue.
No, what was the percentage difference?
So the ADR for high-end hotels and resort locations is today like $70 higher than it was in 2019.
Wow.
No, it's legit. This is just a subset of luxury and upper upscale hotels, but it is legitimately higher. Now, two reasons for that. A, Americans spend a lot of money, but B, we're not diluted by the lower group and the lower corporate transient pre-negotiated rate, right? As Chris knows, that sort of drops your ADR. And so that's not sustainable. If we have group and transient back, that delta is going to come down. That premium is going to come down just because the mix is shifting back to where it used to be. But today, those properties are the winners.
Right. Think about the pressure you can put if you have a meeting location in a spot where it's a resort location or there's a lot of outdoor availability compared to city center meeting locations. There is meeting demand. Okay, I mean, we've got half the business on the books for next year that we had in 2019. So there's demand, but the demand is constrained to a certain subset of hotels, and those subset hotels can just put the pressure on the ADR because they know they've got what everybody wants. Where you're not competing with, used to be like I used to run a hotel in North Carolina. You're not really competing with like the coast and then Raleigh, right? So now you're just competing with the coast or maybe the mountains, coast and mountains. So it's compressed. It's just an interesting dynamic.
Fascinating. So, Andrea, what other observations are consumers bringing you?
Well, I think we just touched on this when talking about, ADR in some of those resort or locations and sort of full service luxury. I think, yes, this past year, if they were out there, they were willing to splurge. So they were, they were paying those rates, right? And again, we talked about potential for upsell. I think maybe there's some of that going on where hotels were upselling guests on, better rooms, bigger rooms, right? And guests were willing to pay for that. So we did see that a little bit in our study as well. So definitely the satisfaction was there. We do ask about value for money every year, and this year the satisfaction was fairly even, no decline there. I think value, guests really did see some value for money wherever they were this past year. So that was kind of a little bit of an opposite movement from food and beverage, which did decline. And housekeepers, it's been a tough year, and they have done a fabulous job across full service, select service. Guests were definitely still satisfied, very highly satisfied with guest rooms and housekeeping, cleanliness. So that's good news.
That's really good to hear. That's really good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know what I'd like to see more of? I've been thinking about this a lot lately. A lot of these new companies that are coming out with the QR codes for in-room tipping. I think that I'd really like to see more of that, especially as people get more cashless. I've been in a couple of situations where I really have to go down and get some, change and stuff like that. And to just have that, I think will encourage people to tip more often, which is very, very important. Now, yes, Chris.
Public service announcement.
Yes,
So
sir.
all of you that are not hoteliers out here, it's okay to tip your housekeeper. If you got a $10 bill and you had a great stay, it is okay to leave a $10 bill. They will get it and they will appreciate it. It's something that I think is a lost art, and it's totally fine. So
another tip that I would do is, no pun intended, if you're there for 3 or 4 or 5 days and you're looking to tip your housekeeper, tip them every day. So if you're going to tip them $30 or $20 at the end of a 5-day stay, make it individual every day, like $5, because that housekeeper at the last day may be the first time she's cleaning your room, and there was a young lady or a young man cleaning your room for 3 or 4 days. So if you're staying for a long stay, tip every day.
Yep, that's absolutely right. All right, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Maybe some final thoughts before we wrap up. Jan, what's the big takeaway for the day?
Everybody's wondering what happens after Labor Day. That's the big wild card. Chris is wondering, Andrea's wondering, I'm wondering, you're wondering. Yes, things are, we're optimistic, but the reality is Delta is really throwing a wrench into CEOs' risk tolerance, and I'm afraid that this third, fourth quarter is already baked. We're still putting our high hopes on weekends and weddings and reunions. But midweek, man, it's going to be tough. But going back to Chris's point from an hour ago, even if you drop your room rate to $10, you're not going to induce additional demand because people aren't allowed to travel. So you might as well just keep your room rate where it is. So the people that are staying with you are not saying, oh, but last year, that in 2022, they're going to say, well, last year, room rate cost $50 or so. So just be very, 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 very careful how you rate manage this environment.
And listen, and make sure your website's up to date. Make sure it's easy to book. Make sure the pictures are great. And, and you'll get that extra $10. I was just booking a room myself. My assistant was available, and I was booking the room. And I literally left the website. I was like, screw it. And I went to a different hotel because it literally took 5 more seconds that I'm used to waiting to book a room. And I went somewhere else in 5 seconds. So we have to make sure our technology is up to speed.
Yep. Chris, any final thoughts from you, sir?
I feel like travel is very safe. Keep traveling. We need you traveling. I've got a lot of associates that really count on you traveling as the public. So it's safe. We're very clean. Our hotels are clean. The industry is clean, and we need you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Andrea?
We need business travel to come back. We need those meetings and events to come back. So hopefully this isn't going to be a permanent thing. I know companies are trying to figure out, should employees travel? Where should they travel? How should they travel? Why should they travel? But I think it's something that we're going to have to really keep a close close eye on. Hopefully, though, I will see everyone at the lodging conference in Scottsdale. I will be there. Very excited about that. It will be in person. Let's hope that doesn't change in the
Chris,
next
take me out golf. Take me and Glenn out golfing, Chris.
Yeah.
I'll get David Eisen to take you out golfing. So.
Yeah, you don't want to see me golf. You guys will be there all day long. I'll break 100. I'll get under 100 per hole. So my
I was gonna say you're breaking 100.
I'm not going.
All right, everybody, guys, thank you so much for being here. What
Thank
a great
you.
episode this has been.
Thank
We'll
you so
see
much.
you all later. All right, Anthony, that was a really good one today. I really enjoyed learning from all of our friends there.
Yeah, and is Chris still in the green room?
Yes.
Bring him back.
Should we? All right, he's back.
All right, Chris, how's your son? I didn't ask about your son. Is he doing better?
He's back to work. Thank you. He's doing good. Thank you. So we're on the other side of it. Thanks for asking.
Thank God. All right, yeah, I was thinking about it, and I'm glad you're still in the green room, Mr. Green.
Thanks for.
But that was a
Thank you
good
guys.
show. That was a good show.
Yeah, thank you guys too for keeping doing this. It's good stuff.
Well, we're going to be doing it so nobody wants to hear us. And, thanks for adding some really good flavor today. It's really great when you have all these numbers and the statistics and the people presenting it, but then you have someone like you who's living it every day and can back it up either way. So thank you.
Cool.
My pleasure. See you guys.
Take care.
Peace.
All right. Peace. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. What a good show today. I really think we all learned a lot today. I very much enjoyed that. And I gotta tell you, Anthony, I think that there is going to be opportunity in the future, but you guys got to keep watching No Vacancy Live every day to learn what the latest is out there.
And also, you know what we got to do, Glenn? We've got to do a much better job of people telling the right reviews on the podcast because our reviews, we have 437 reviews, all 5 stars, but they're outdated. Nobody's writing reviews anymore. And our numbers are bigger than they've ever been, and nobody's writing reviews, Glenn.
All right, write reviews, guys. Go wherever you are, wherever you're downloading. Listen, you can download the show wherever you want. You can download it on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio.
Really?
You know all of these things I tell you every day. Write some reviews, show us a little love. Hey, we're giving you this content for free every single day. We could use it. And I know our egos could use the help too. And if you want to reach out to us, he's at Anthony Hotels and I'm at Traveling Glenn. Any final thoughts before we go, sir?
No. When are we going to see each other next week at, I think I'm kind of not traveling for another 2 weeks. So
neither am I. Let's reach out to Grady. I may or may not be going up to some family for Rosh Hashanah. I don't know.
And when are we going to Margaritaville in New York City?
We got to figure that one out too. I'll get producers Dave and Suzanne to work that out. I don't know why.
Suzanne, you hear that, Suzanne? We need to go to Margaritaville in Times Square. I just passed it yesterday. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. All right. Let's wrap this show up. So remember, everybody, you got one life. So blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
See you tomorrow when I'm back in my home studio. Peace.